Give everybody just a minute to tune in. If you're just watching, we're going to give everybody just a couple minutes to tune in before I go to the breakdowns. If it messes up, I've been having some issues with my computer all day. So if for some reason I randomly cut out, that'll be why. But I think I've got it fixed. I'm not entirely sure yet. But we'll go ahead and get started. You can make a case the biggest race of the weekend might not even be Saturday night. It might be on Sunday for the Pegasus Stakes because Maximum Security is running back. And if you want to take a chance on that horse, now might be the time to do it and maybe get a good payout because he's probably going to go off as a 1-2 favorite, if not lower than that. And his last 2 races, he's really ran some really slow-paced races, especially in the Florida Derby and the Kentucky Derby. They started out fast, but the pace after that went really, really slow. And Jason Service already came out and said, I'll see if I can pull up the article, that he's not training how he wants him to.
Hey, Horse Center fans, Matt and I are back with another exciting edition of the show. We're talking.
Mute that. But if you go look at the article on Horse Racing Nation, they were talking about running blood tests on the horse to figure out why he wasn't running so good, and that can't be a positive sign. And the fact that his 2 biggest wins of all came when he's got to dictate his own terms. So I think you got to respect him a lot, but there's also a horse named, where's he at? King for a Day. He ran on the Preakness undercard, and we'll go to him, and they actually ran faster fractions in that race than what they did in the Preakness Stakes, which I'll show y'all in just a second. Pull up the horse. And we'll go to the Sir Barton Stakes. It was the, I think it was the 3rd race on the card that day. Go to all. And see, they ran 23.50, 46.76, 110.36, 135.12 for 141.40 for a mile and 16th. And we'll go down to the Preakness. And see, well, they did run a faster opening fraction, 22.50, then 46.16, 110.56, 135.48 for 154.34. Well, I was wrong about the mile fraction, but it wasn't that far off. They ran a little slower starting out, but it wasn't like King for a Day ran that much slower than the horses that ran in the Preakness. He ran a but I thought it was a very solid race and got a very solid time. You see the track record is 140.80, and they ran 140.140. And if you go to the Preakness track record, see 152.55 and 154.34. So you see that the race with King for a day is not that far off the track record. So it's definitely a very solid effort. And maybe Pletcher can get him to make another move forward, because that was the first time he raced since November of 18 when they got caught in that big pastel in the Kentucky Jockey Club. So if I'm going to take a stand against maximum security, this might be the horse I do it with. Or I think the next logical choice would be Identifier. And I know he ran awful in the maiden that Hidden Skull won by 14 lengths on the Pegasus Day undercard, but that was a wet track, and on the lead is exactly where you wanted to be. And he got caught sitting a little wide and off the pace, so he was up against it. But he's came back and ran 2 solid races, so maybe if for some reason crazy pace still happens or something like that, or maximum security actually has to run legitimate fractions for once, you just don't know. But if you want to take a chance, there is a chance for some money to be made. I wouldn't go bet the whole bank on it, but it'll be interesting to see how maximum security comes back and runs in the Pegasus. He's going to be a big factor in the 3-year-old division moving forward. And then we'll move on to the races on Saturday night. And we'll start with the Stephen Foster. And I'm going to take a stand against Gift Box. I know if he won the race, I don't think it would surprise anybody. But if you go back and look at the Equibase race charts for all from like last year all the way to like 2011, the only favorite to win was Gunrunner, and he was a 3 to 5, and that was anybody that followed Gunrunner that year knew that he was just about going to be unbeatable in that race. And Gift Box is definitely no Gunrunner. Tenfold, I can't go with him because he ran way slower than some of the females did on the Black Eyed Susan Stakes Day it was the day before the Preakness. So I still think he has a ways to go. King Zachary, he's going to be one of my picks. I know that H. Grand Motion brought over Irish Warcry last year, and Irish Warcry didn't fire at all in that race. And if you look back, King Zachary did win the Matt Win last year, which is a 3-year-old race on the same day as Stephen Foster. Won very impressively and won the race before that over Churchill. So he definitely has a love for the track. And there's not much point in watching the race right here just because it was his first race off the layoff. He didn't really do much. So you're not going to get nothing out of by watching the race. You just got to take a chance that he didn't have him fully cranked the first time around, and he'll be ready to take a step forward this time. And Tom's Day Tot, he's going to be my other choice. And I'm going to disagree with what they say right here about the -5 and -9 for the pace. I'll see if we can look up that video. And you'll see he's the 2 horse. And I'll pull up the race chart after this. But Mackenzie's definitely turned into a very solid horse, especially at smaller distances. And this was his first, or Tom's Day at Tot's first start since the Pegasus, so I can't imagine he was fully cranked for that race. They probably had him geared more towards this one. But Mackenzie came back and ran a very good second in the Met Mile. I think he might have had an outshot shot at first, but went for him running in the traffic down the stretch. It would have been real close between him and Matoli. So I think Tom's Day at Tot's going to run a little bit better. He's going to have more value. And let's go to the race chart for that. They gave him a 108 Equibase speed figure, which sometimes I question how Equibase does their speed figures, because I'll show y'all some examples in a couple of seconds of horses that run slower times get a higher speed figure than the ones that run faster times on the same card. It makes no sense. But hang on, I gotta find the race. Alright, here it is. So they run 2381, 4771, then 11167, 13504, and the next race is She's a Julie, and they run 2401, 4792, 11205, 13696 for 143.58. So basically they're saying that either, here I'll pull up the race, I'll show you that they're going to show two separate things for it. Alright, I'm going to show, this is the Troyan ran at the same mile and 16th race, just the race after, and I showed right here that they ran 2401, 4792, 11205. So they run 2381, 4771, 11167. Well, if you look at the Tom's Day at Tot, they say he ran 5 below par and 9 below par, so say in the slow pace race. But if you look at this race, the same race ran slower times. They're saying +3 and +4. So that makes absolutely no sense at all. So keep that in mind. I think this race is a little bit faster than what it wasn't the slow pace that they're giving them credit for. It wasn't a flying pace by any means, but it was definitely I think just an average pace. And we'll move on to the take that down, that down. Clip, we'll go watch the Oaklawn handicap, because he's going to be a horse that takes a lot of money.
Very, very close.
And we'll watch the race. I'll even let the track announcer
Chris
do
and
his thing.
Dave, remembering Rita and Quip. These four are across the track, and they seem to be going at a good clip. Then comes Giant Expectations and Tenfold with Lone Sailor, and at the back of the pack are the two stretch runners, Looking at Lee and Radar Superstar. Pioneer Spirit wanted that lead, and he's got it from Remembering Rita in second. Pioneer Spirit 3/4 of a length. Remembering Rita is second, the same margin to Chris and Dave and Equip. They're together third and fourth and 2 from the front. Giant Expectations is well placed for Joel Rosario, and he is fifth with 4 lengths to make up and 2 lengths in front of Tenfold, who rides the rail. Lone Sailor is next. He's 7 from the lead. He's 2 in front of Rated R Superstar, and if Looking at Lee wins the 73rd Oaklawn Handicap, he'll make up 12 lengths in the final half mile as they pick up the pace with Pioneer Spirit and Remembering Rita. These two are matching strides, and they have opened up a bit here. Pioneer Spirit's a neck in front of Remembering Rita in second. Here is Giant Expectations outside of Quip. Giant Expectations is...
I'll cut the track announcer off, but look how hard Quip's having to work. He's a 7 on the inside, and he's just been under steady urging the whole time. And the 2 horses in front are not the top of the class, older dirt horses. So he's having to work in overdrive just to put them away. And he could take another step forward off of his 3rd start of the year. But I think most times you see horses that'll kind of run better between the 1st to 2nd, 2nd to 3rd. Their biggest jump comes from 1st to 2nd, and then there'll be a little tightener going from 2nd to 3rd. So maybe there is a little more of a forward move, but I'm just going to have a hard time to put him in as a win contender, seeing how hard he had to work to win that race. If you're looking for a long shot play, Alcatam, I think he might be the one. If you look at his last 4 workouts, they've been all bullets: 5 furlongs and 59.2, 4 furlongs and 48, 5 furlongs and 59, 5 furlongs in a minute. They've all been bullets. And he's very lightly raced. He ran twice as a 2-year-old, once as a 3-year-old, and this is the first time he's actually making a consecutive, starts. So maybe he does have a good forward move in him, given that his morning line is 30-1, which I think he's actually going to drop a little bit lower than that because he's going to be kind of the wise guy horse. And I've seen some experts already go ahead and pick him in. I don't know about y'all, but for me, sometimes seeing like an expert pick a horse that kind of stands out, like that almost turns me off to him, because I'm like, there goes the value, and he's still going to have to take another step forward to win. I'll go pull up the race. Seth Dominus, how's it going? Let's see, May 12th. And once it loads, I'll play it. Seems like Trackless is probably the best way to watch the Churchill Downs videos, because their replay thing under the results always seems to act up from time to time. But he's the number 5 horse.
Racing for the lead. Thirsty Betrayal breaks well to the outside, and down inside is Color Guarded Rubis. They're racing.
And he's the white horse. So he's right up on the front. I wonder if he'll be maybe a little bit of a pace factor in this race. Because then he's going to kind of start to sit back just a little bit. And the horses he beat wasn't very good. But looking at him, I didn't feel like he was really asked for a whole lot. He just done most of the work on his own. Down the stretch, he gets asked just a little bit, which you'll see in just a few seconds. But you don't really see the jockey hitting him too hard. He's just kind of letting him ride along. And he's going to get up to terms all on his own, which I like to see that. I don't like to see a lot of urging from the jockey. I like to see a horse do a lot of the work on his own, especially against inferior competition. He's going to turn for home, and jockey's going to shake the reins, and he's going to take off. He doesn't really, I think he might go to the whip once or twice, but it wasn't nothing too crazy. He runs away. So I thought that was a very professional win. And given the bullet workouts he's fired, you could really make a case of that 30-1 in a field that the favorites have won once out of the last 9 or 10 years. And that's just as far as I went back. I don't know. After like 2011, I quit pulling up race charts and looking because that was enough of a sample size for me. But somebody like Alcatom could be uh, a very tempting play at a price. Seeking the Soul, I think he's going to be one of the two sucker horses because he runs solid in a lot of big races, but he doesn't really win too often. See, only 6 wins from 26 career starts, but he is in the money a lot. But because of the name and the jockey, you're going to see him be bet down a lot. Probably, I would say 3-1, 4-1, maybe 5-1. And for a horse that just runs in the money, like when I do my superfecta tomorrow, I'm not going to count him out of spots like 3rd and 4th. But as far as win consideration, I'm going to take a stand against him. And I think your other potential sucker horse is going to be Yoshida. But I will say this, Bill Mott has definitely finished in the money a lot with some horses that he's brought to Churchill to run the Stephen Foster over the years. So I'm confident that Yoshida will fire a good effort. I just wonder how much the Dubai trip may have taken out of him. Given what his value is going to be at probably 3-1, I don't want to play him. There's enough that I see for me to take a stand against him. And there really is a lot of horses in this race that if they won, nobody would really be surprised. Like Thirst for Life, he ran in the same race as King Zachary, and we'll play that race. And he done something I can't say a lot of the older dirt horses have actually done this year, and that's run a faster time than some of the 3-year-olds. Because Mr. Money ran in the Pat Day mile, ran 135.25 for the mile, and in this race they ran 134.29. So that was good to see. And we'll pull up that race and watch it. And I'm trying to remember what horse he is. All right, the number 5. And American Anthem wasn't a bad horse last year for Bob Baffert. I don't know what he's turned into be this year. I think he's raced just that one time. Just because horses were good the previous year doesn't always mean it's going to turn into being successful in the next year. And this was also the race that King Zachary was in. He's the number 4 horse. But he's not going to do much running. He's going to pass some horses down the stretch to end up getting 3rd, but he's still behind the front 2 by 8 lengths. But I like how the 5 is just kind of riding the rail, and he's not really being asked for a whole lot. He's doing a lot of the work on his own. And he's going to kind of alter course down the stretch. Looks like he's going to shoot up the rail, and then he's going to cut over and go to the outside. But considering a lot of the older dirt mounts can't even beat the 3-year-olds race times this year, I thought that was finally an impressive effort, and maybe he could potentially win it because he is in the best form he's been since the middle of last year. And that was a very solid race. And at 15-1, he could be a good bet. And if anybody follows Mina a little bit, he's known to bring home some long shot horses from time to time. But I'd say the horses you could probably count out would be Rated R Superstar. He'd be nothing more than a superfecta filler. I'll count out Runaway Ghost because he had to work really hard at the Sunland Park handicap to put away Looking at Lee and American Dubai, who are hardly top of the line horses, which we'll watch that race too. Try to find it. Here it is. And this race, the timer messed up for it after the opening quarter, so I don't know what the internal fractions were. I know the final time was 1:48, but Sunland Park also is a quick track, so the final time wasn't really too impressive, I guess. But I do know the opening 24-second quarter was very slow. But you'll see Runaway Ghost is sitting in second. But when it gets time to ask for his run, he's going to have to work overdrive just to put away this field. And let's say if Looking at Lee was running in this race, I don't think too many people would pick Looking at Lee to win it. So if you don't like him, then kind of makes me not like Runaway Ghost either. But you'll see the jockey's already getting after him and still just struggling just to get up on even terms with American Dubai. And he's finally going to start to catch him and pass him, but then you got Looking at Lee coming up right behind him. American Dubai puts up a good fight to hang in there for third. But I just didn't like how hard he was urged to put away that field. And he's got to go to a track. Like anybody that follows Runaway Ghost knows that he loves Sunland Park. He runs his best races there. He reminds me of like diversifying when he runs at the New York tracks. He's top of the line there, but you get him out of there and he doesn't run the same. To me, that's Runaway Ghost. He'll beat anybody at Sunland Park, but then you move him to another track and he's not the same horse. So given how hard he worked and the fact that he's moving away from this preferred track, just there's too many negatives for me. So I would say you could count him out from any kind of consideration. And Tenfold, he struggled to win the Pimlico Special, and they ran slower times on the card than the females did that day. So he's going to have to take a big step forward to win that, and enough that I'm not gonna pick Tenfold anywhere at all. Like I said, King Zachary is going to be one of my two picks because I think he's going to surprise. And Tom's Day of Todd, I think, is another one that's going to have another move forward. And that's it. So there's a few horses that probably two or three I would say that you can eliminate, but the rest of them wouldn't surprise me the least bit if they won. And now we'll move on to the Fleur de Lis, which is for the winning you're in for the Breeders' Cup Distaff. And this horse, or this field, to me, pretty much boils down to two horses. She's a Julie. who after she won the Iowa Oaks last year, I thought she was ready to take a big step forward. I've actually bet her in the Alabama because I didn't think Midnight Bisu's preferred distance was 1.25 miles. But turns out I got beat by Eskimo Kisses. If I remember right, I thought they ran a real fast pace in the race. This doesn't say so, but it seemed like I remember like a 22-second opening quarter. But after that race, she ran some solid races, but nothing too impressive. But the Latroy might be the first race where she's really got back on track. And I think they caught some really slow fractions in the Latroy. Like if you agree that McKenzie and Tom's Day of Talk caught slow fractions in the Alysheba, then with this being the very next race, you have to assume that they caught very slow fractions. Because I don't think the racetrack changed that much, or at least when I was watching, I didn't see any reason for me to believe that it changed that much. So the fact that she overcame the pace, she likes to come from a little off of it to win. I thought that was very impressive. Late in the Ziri, that pace was just completely not in her favor. She's another one that likes to sit back off the pace. And Midnight Bisu is turned into a great horse this year. The first race that really impressed me, though, was on the Belmont undercard. That kind of sold me on her a little bit, enough to make her the favorite, at least until Monomoy Girl runs and we get to see her. But you never know how she's going to come back off of her long layoff. But we'll play we'll play the Apple Blossom. And I'll let the track announcer take it for just a minute.
Escape Clause and Wonder Gadot are asked for speed, and Wonder Gadot flies up on the outside, and Tyler Bays is going to let her clear off with Escape Clause in second. Wonder Gadot pumped up to the backstretch, and she opens up 3. Escape Clause and Viva Forever, then Elate and Midnight Bisu, and the early trailer is Chocolate Martini. Wonder Gadot, very aggressive to the backstretch of the 55th Apple Blossom, and she leads by a solid 4 lengths from Escape Clause and Long Shot Viva Forever. Elate is at the rail. She's 4th now in the blue and white, and about 4 from the front. Midnight Bisu clocks her just to the outside.
All right, I'll cut them off. But if you watch the first race of the year between Midnight Bisu and Elate was the one that came wide, and Midnight Bisu kind of snuck up the rail. Well, in this race, the roles are reversed. It's Elate that's coming up the rail, and Midnight Bisu is the one having to go wide. Escape Clause was a horse that was in very good form. I think she tailed off a little bit on the Belmont undercard in the Acorn. So maybe Elate was just up against it. She didn't get embarrassed, I would guess, but I thought she should have finished a little bit better than what she did. And towards the end of the race, Elate's going to start to come just a little bit. Maybe it takes her a minute to get into a run, and she'll see she's starting to grind down and grind away, but it's too little too late. And that was at 1.16 miles, and Elate does seem to like a little bit of distance. If you look at her 2 best races she's ever had, one was at 1.25 miles in the Alabama in 2017, won by 5.5 lengths. Then she won at Belmont at 1.125 miles. And if you watch the Delaware Handicap last year, she won that race. First race off a long layoff. And then in the personal ensign, finished second to Abel Tasman in what was a very good 1-2 match race. So I don't think 1.16 miles is her preferred distance. I think 1.25 miles is really her preferred distance, but she'll be real competitive at 1.125 miles. So she does have that going in her favor. And I still don't think she's a Julie Stands. I think she's good enough that I would just about put these two, 1-2 and exact, or maybe try to take a chance and put one over the other. It's real tough for me to say out, just depending on which one of the two you like better, box it, but or do it straight. But if you want to make a safe bet, just box the 2 and 3 together and exacta, and it won't pay much, but take your guarantee on the card and go on to the next race. And Blue Prize, she did win the race last year, and she didn't fire first off the layoff. She got 7th, lost by 8 3/4 lengths. But then she had pretty much 2 more races to prep before that, and this year her first race back was Latroin, and she got 3rd by 4 lengths. So maybe she does have that step forward. If she did, I wouldn't be surprised. But I would think that to catch up to that field, she would need one more race under her belt. But I'm going to take a stand against her. I think she could take some money just based off of winning it the previous year. But just because you won it the previous year doesn't mean you're going to win it this year. And to be honest, Farrell and Mopatism were not known as top 3-year-old fillies. The only way I see a big-time upset occurring would be because she's a Julie, likes to sit off the pace. The late likes to sit off the pace. And a lot of these horses like to sit off the pace. If one of them, say like, go Google yourself, who runs towards the front a little bit, or at least in the last couple races, just takes it and gets to walk the field, or maybe even the one skeptic. But that's the only way I see a big upset. So one of these two just gets a chance to cut out like a 24.5 opening quarter and a 49 second half or something like that. But if they run solid fractions, they're going to be fried, and it's going to come down to the 2 and 3. And we'll move on to what I think the best bet of the day is on Saturday, or one of the 2 best bets of the day, I should say. And the first one's going to be Varinka in the Regret Stakes. She's trained by H-Gram Motion. And I do wonder if maybe Varinka's the reason, like the main reason H-Gram Motion came over. And King Zachary could be a horse that he's just taking a shot with. But in her last race, she caught really, really, really slow fractions at Beaumont, which we'll watch that race. But it took her a little bit to find the winner's circle, and she raced against some good competition. She raced against Newspaper of Record, got 2nd. Ran again in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly and Mare Turf. Got 5th, wasn't really too embarrassed, but still lost to some good horses. And they finally brought her back to maiden special weight to finally get that win. But you see, she's been aggressively placed the whole time. And there's not really too many other standout horses, I guess, in this field. Like Hungry Kitten took 3 times to break her maiden. Belle Laura, there's nothing that has shown me that I've seen that she could do anything. But we'll move on to the replay of that race. Oops.
Waiting for Love That Goose and Weekend of
May
Forecast.
11th, race 8. And this was also the same card that had the Man of War Stakes and everything. So we'll go back and compare, and we got some good races to compare that to. And I'll let the track
Pretty good
announcer
beginning on
take
the
over for a
inside,
minute.
but is now taken over by Lead Oki, who goes up to grab the lead as they race onto the backstretch. Structural Deficit up into second, and then it's Romantic Pursuit third on the outside, as Sansarina is taken hard in hand in fourth. Mrs. Scott Rocks goes up on the outside fifth, and farther out Saphira sixth in between horses. Tippet Tappet is there, then Varenka, who's in mid-pack after a good beginning, and then Elite Mom to the outside. They're followed by Funny Flowers, and at the back of the field are Inspector Havers and Palace Athene. 25:04 was the opening quarter mile as they head up the backstretch, with Lido Key leading the way and Romantic Pursuit pressing the pace on the outside. Structural Deficit in behind them is third. Tippet Tappet follows in fourth alongside. And then Saphira on the far outside. Mrs. Scott Rocks. Varenka down toward the rail. 50.47 and a half. Break of another two back to San Saphira, who's got 6 lengths to make up. Then Elite Mom outside of Funny Flowers. And Inspector Havers is at the back with Palace Athene. Around the far turn, Lido Key a half a length. Romantic Pursuit. Second on the outside. These two continue to run 1-2. And then it's Tippet Tappet. Structural Deficit puts it a bit on the inside within 2.5 lengths of the lead and going pretty well at this stage of the race. A wide run for Saphira. In behind them, Mrs. Scott Rocks and Varenka bottled up on the inside. They're into the stretch. Romantic Pursuit takes the lead from Lido Key. These two still 1-2 as they arrive in mid-stretch. Here comes Structural Deficit with her run, and farther out Varenka is at least, and Varenka just rallies up on the outside, takes the lead and takes off for the wire. Varenka finishing strong and in.
That might be one of the most impressive turns of foot I've seen this year. Like, the jockey didn't hardly ask her for anything. She'd done that all on her own. But just look, she's inside right here. And she's just going to open up. Just watch the jockey real close when he gets around the turn. Just once or twice, I think that he shook her up, and then